I'm the mother of 3 grown children and the grandmother of 3 very rapidly growing grandsons. I come from a big family. I'm the oldest of 10 kids. Good Catholic family, 5 adopted, 5 not, 5 girls, 5 boys, in a neighborhood of 125 kids. Grew up in the 40s and the 50s. Strong background in the pre-Vatican II church, which is, imagine, the same as the post-Vatican II church. The Catholic Church's teachings never change. They're immutable. They're foundational. They're forever. The love letter, the love story that Todd was talking about is forever because it comes from a God who is faithful, immutable, never changing, the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so the sense that we get is that we're standing on, as the gospel says, solid ground, a rock solid foundation. I have been, like I said, a wanderer. Finished my undergrad degree in Chicago, then started a family in southeastern Missouri, then back up to St. Louis to be a principal. I've been a truck driver, a legal secretary, a paralegal. I get bored easily. But I enjoy all the things that I do. So how did I get back into catechesis? How did I go from being raised the oldest of a strong Catholic family, going to college in the 60s in the big city, and then doing what I'm doing today, exactly what you're doing here as well. I remember once a long time ago somebody saying, you know, I feel really left out because I'm a cradle Catholic, not myself, but she said to me, I feel really left out because I'm a cradle Catholic. I never had that conversion experience. I never wandered away from the church, tried other things, and then came back, which is what I had done. And I felt kind of sorry for her, but now that I'm involved in the new evangelization, I recognize that none of us have to say, gosh, I feel left out because I'm just a cradle Catholic. We have that opportunity for conversion every moment of every day. That we wake up and we say, once again, Lord, I turn to you, I thank you for my life, I thank you for loving me. That conversion happens every moment of every day. Driving across the causeway this morning, which was kind of an interesting, I mean, it's not that I haven't done it a million times, but interesting experience today because I'm looking at the lake and I'm going, is that steam? Is this a giant hot tub? I get steam rising off the lake. And I've seen that before, but in smaller bodies of water. And it was just such an amazing thing, and thinking, wow, Lord, you give us these little amazements every day to show who you are, how great you are, how great thou art, which is my mom's favorite song and one of my favorite hymns as well. But I diverge. I heard a line, and I was telling Todd this yesterday, I guess. I heard a line in a film, TV, made for TV probably, movie, a couple of weeks ago when I was preparing this, and the lady said, there were 2 women and they were speaking, and the one woman was really struggling with some issue or whatever, and the other lady said to her, I know, seeing is believing, but sometimes you have to believe before you can see. And that's what happened to me. That when I wandered away from the church, I wasn't mad. It was the 60s. Everybody wandered away from everything in the 60s. But when I came back, the thing that was so amazing to me is that the church still taught what the church always taught. And I felt so comfortable coming back. I felt so, oh wow, there really is still grace. Oh wow, there really still is the Trinity. Oh wow, people still bless themselves. People still make the sign of the cross on their forehead, their lips, and their breast when we prepare to hear the gospel. They still stand for the gospel. And those may be little things, but I had to start believing again in order to see that the church hadn't changed, that this love story that I was involved in before I went wild and crazy in Chicago and St. Louis in the 60s and the 70s, that it was waiting there for me to come home to. And we talk about, and Todd mentioned this morning, about the C&E Catholics, the Christmas and Easter Catholics. And I thought to myself, Christmas and Easter, yeah, well, at least they do that. But they don't know why they do that. And it wasn't until I understood what was in here, the greatest gift that the church has given us in a long, long time, that I could believe and then suddenly see what the church was teaching us. And you know, this is something I train catechists and I train parish catechetical leaders. I work with all the parish programs. And I tell them, you have a tremendous responsibility, catechists, parish catechetical leaders, because if the church speaks for God, which she does, and you speak for the church as a catechist, as a parish catechetical leader, that's a heck of a responsibility. But the beauty of it is, and so my admonition, of course, is so you better darn well know what you're talking about. But the beauty of it is that we have all the grace that we need as a catechist. Parents have special graces to do what they do. We as catechists have special graces to do what we do. Yes, we're held to a high responsibility, but yes, we've got the power from God, if we want it, if we ask for it, to do what we need to do. So this morning, as we kind of stomp around in this part of the catechism, in the first pillar, I want you to, those of you, I hope you have your catechisms, if you will open to start with, I said that this was one of the greatest gifts that the church has given us. In the prologue, in the in the Apostolic Constitution, the Deposit of Faith, Pope John Paul says, "Therefore I ask the church's pastors and Christian faithful, all of us, to receive," I love this, to receive the catechism, this catechism, in a spirit of communion, and to use it assiduously in fulfilling their mission, not just his mission, their mission, our mission, of proclaiming the faith and calling people to the gospel life. This catechism is given to them that it may be a sure and authentic text, reference text for teaching Catholic doctrine, and particularly for preparing local catechism. But this is the kicker. It is also offered to all the faithful who wish to deepen their knowledge of the unfathomable riches of salvation. So it's about here, it's about here, it's about all of us, our entire person, because it wasn't just my head that was saved or my heart that was saved, it was all of me. And I love that opening, because not only is it a guide for us to know how to live and how to understand what the church teaches, but it's kind of our vehicle to salvation. You know, hop on board and take that ride. As we start, I'd like to, you know, it's funny, I learned in college, I never finish sentences. I learned in college to write papers, big research papers. And one of the research papers I did was in classic literature, and I loved mystery stories, so I did a paper on the life of Edgar Allan Poe. And Edgar Allan Poe, like many of the writers of his day, would start at the end. Okay, and so I've kind of gotten into this habit for about the last 40 years of starting at the end of something. In other words, where am I going? I guess in education they call that being a global learner. Show me the big picture and then tell me how to get there. Show me the end result that you're looking for, and then I can figure out how to get there. What's my destination? What are the best routes to get there? So this morning, I'd like you to turn to the second page, the back of the second page, on the creed, behind the creed. And I'm going to read this prayer to you. We're going to close with it, but I want to read this prayer to you because this is kind of where we're, well, not kind of, this is where we're headed. Blessed Elizabeth of the Trinity, pray this prayer, and this is in your catechism, number 260. Oh my God, Trinity whom I adore, help me forget myself entirely so to establish myself in you, unmovable and peaceful, as if my soul were already in eternity. May nothing be able to trouble my peace or make me leave you, O my unchanging God, but may each minute bring me more deeply into your mystery. Grant my soul peace. Make it your heaven, your beloved dwelling, and the place of your rest. May I never abandon you there, but may I be there whole and entire, completely vigilant in my faith, entirely adoring, wholly given over to your creative action. Make that your prayer. You know, we all have those special prayers. My Aunt Ann in Illinois never fell asleep at night with saying the prayer, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, I give you my heart and my soul, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. They're like four exhortations to Jesus, Mary, Joseph, you know, and may my final words be Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. My favorite at the end of Mass, my Thanksgiving, soul of Christ, sanctify me, body of Christ, save me. And that's the prayer that I pray before I leave church. This is one of the most beautiful prayers I've ever read because it talks about, it addresses what encompasses the entire Apostles' Creed, the section in the Creed, the Catechism, the Blessed Trinity, the Holy Trinity. And so often, y'all cradle Catholics? You grew up learning about the Trinity, Christians, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Sometimes those things become so familiar to us that we kind of forget that they're there. They're unseen. But when we become intentional about our faith, if we look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the Apostles' Creed, we'll no longer say, I guarantee you, on Sunday, you'll no longer pray the Nicene Creed by rote, it's just words. It's so amazing when you look at it. If we start that section on the profession of faith, that pillar, there's a whole section on faith. And I'm not going to go into that right this morning because I simply don't have time. Todd's going to go, and I have to stop mid-sentence. But I admonish you, I exhort you, please read that section on faith. I'm going to talk about the theological virtues this afternoon, and I'll go a little bit more into faith, but it's the underpinning of all of I believe. What does it mean to say I believe? I remember teaching high school, that's another thing I did. Teaching high school in Perryville, Missouri many years ago when my youngest child, or my oldest child was very young. And I remember having to say to these high school deer hunting, football playing good old boys, Perryville's about 5,000 people, so football was pretty much, and deer hunting was all they had. That's where I learned to hunt. But I remember saying to these, ultimately, because they kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing, you know how high school kids are. And I had to say, all right, bottom line, if I'm the only person in the world left, and I held up the Bible, that believes what's in here, this was back in 1978, 79, that believes what's in here, if I'm the only person, everybody else tells me I'm crazy, nobody else believes, then I'm hanging on to it. And that's what we have to come to. That if everybody around us tells us we're crazy, don't be afraid of that. You know, John Paul II, when he started his papacy, said, be not afraid. And I say to you, when you pick up this original source, this origin, be not afraid. This is where we live. This is where we need to stomp around in. Faith gives you that power to believe. And all you have to do is ask for more. So if you're struggling to believe what Todd and I are saying and some of the other teachers are saying, or what the church teaches, just ask God for more faith. And I'll get into that later. But let's start with the sections in the Creed about who God is. Turn to 268. Do y'all remember when you were growing up, some of you are old enough to maybe have learned this, like I did, the attributes of God. It saddens me that we don't really emphasize this anymore. What are some of the attributes of the Almighty? Well, that's one. He's what? All-knowing, right? Okay. Another one? All-loving. He is love, right? I mean, where do we learn to love but to look at God, the revealed self of God? Okay. Never changing. He's everywhere. Omnipresent, omnipotent. Okay. Well, the Catechism looks right now, if you look at 268, really looks only at his almightiness, his omnipotence. In 269, we're told that God's power is loving, for he's our Father, and mysterious because only faith can discern it. What? When it is revealed in weakness. Right here. Right here. If you see any tiny bit of God today in what I do, that's him. His power, his mysteriousness. Okay? And the rest of the sections go on to talk about he does whatever he pleases. If you read the Psalms, which I love to pray, in the office of the hours, if you read the Psalms, the psalmists and the Old Testament writers are constantly saying, he does what he pleases. He's in charge. His power is shown. His greatness is shown. Down to 278, if we don't believe that God's love is almighty, how can we believe that the Father could create us, and the Son redeem us, and the Holy Spirit sanctify us? Okay, so almighty. He is all-powerful. Then the Catechism goes on to talk about the creator of heaven and earth. You've got the creed in front of you. You've got area to take notes. But the Catechesis on creation, which is section 282, I'd like you to look at that right now. It concerns the very foundations of human and Christian life, for it makes explicit the response of Christian faith to the basic that men of all times have asked themselves. Where do we come from? Where are we going? What is our origin? Where does everything that exists come from, and where is it going? That's what Catechesis on creation talks to us about. If we look at 288, the revelation of creation is inseparable from the revelation and forging of the covenant. So what God has given us, what he has created for us, including us, which we'll get into just in a moment, is that covenant, that promise, that vow that God has made to us, that he loves us, that we're special. Look what I've given you, everything you could possibly want. Goes on to expound on the love of God for us as it is expressed in creation. And then there's a section on the angels. If you go just a little bit further after the creation, the mystery of creation. To paragraph 328. If you look at that, paragraph 328 begins a section on the angels. You know, the angels made a great comeback, and I don't mean the LA Angels. I mean the angels made a great comeback in the 90s. Anybody remember the 90s? 20 years ago? But it was all New Age. The New Age philosophies and teachings really kicked the teaching about angels, or kicked the notion of angels into high gear. The Catechism had to come out, and it wasn't because of this, but really talks about who the angels truly are. And you know, when people die, they don't become angels, right? Okay, there's a notion among some of the public that, you know, my child, my young person, you know, now he's an angel in heaven. That's just a figure of speech.
It's a comfort. It's a comfort.
A comfort.
Comfort.
Oh, comfort, absolutely. Absolutely it is, but they don't become angels. Angels are angels, people are people. Now, do we share some of the same attributes? Absolutely. Intellect and will, but they're pure spirit. We got all this stuff we got to carry around with us. So I encourage you to read the section on angels so that when you do get questions, and that's, you know, A reference text? Absolutely. When you do get questions on the angels. Now, of course, every time we get questions on the angels, and Todd said this, well, why should I believe X, Y, Z? Well, because that's what the church teaches. Well, what if I don't believe in the church? Well, then we have to go way back to the beginning. I said something about Christmas and Easter Catholics. We want to get them back to church. We want to get them back to church. We got a lot of work to do before we get them back to church. We've got to evangelize them, have them make a decision that He is it, that Jesus Christ is the boss of my life, that God is in control and I'm not. And then we start from there. So we've got a lot of work to do before that. But just to realize that it's there, the teaching is there. If we want the fullness of truth, we go to the church, the Catholic Church. She may have messed up in her her earthly leaders, or people are always charging us with different things, but the teachings of the church are true.